Dante's Divine Comedy, Inferno, Canto the 31st.
I just remember that we were leaving the 8th Bolgia, I think, with Potiphar's wife and the alchemist.
So the 8th circle was all about deceiving people who have no good reason to trust you. And so eventually we're going to reach the 9th circle, which is all about betraying people who have a good reason to trust you. But not quite yet. So they're leaving the 8th circle and they're making their way to the 9th circle. Dante notes that it's very hard to see. At this point, it's getting very dark. He hears a loud trumpet sound off in the distance, and he looks and he sees what looks like tall towers. He asks Virgil, what's that city up ahead of us? Because he sees towers, you think, oh, there's some sort of city. And Virgil's like, we're so far away at this point, I don't blame you for not realizing what they actually are. In fact, I should probably explain what they are before you see them for yourself, or you might get scared. Virgil explains, those are giants.
Oh, wow.
And they're standing in a pit, and so what you're seeing is them from the belly up.
Wow.
They get up close, and indeed, there's this pit in front of them, and there's just giants from like all the way to the left, all the way to the right. It notes that their faces are about 13 feet wide.
Good grief.
Right.
So this is like Attack on Titan level size.
These things are
okay.
Yeah, absolutely massive.
Wow. Gives very deep lore vibes.
So they come up to one of the giants, and the giants says, Raphael Mahi Amek Zabi Almet.
Oh, so they speak a different language?
Not quite. This is Nimrod. Nimrod does not understand human language. He's the first king of Babylon. And so he's the one who caused people to have to speak different languages, right? As Nimrod tries to talk to them and Dante can't understand him, he gets very angry. And as he does, he pulls out this horn that's tangled up in his hair, and he blows the horn very loudly, making this loud trumpet sound. And Virgil explains that he does that anytime he's angry, because no one can understand him, so he just blows a horn when he's angry instead. They move on to a different giant. This guy is even bigger than before. His arms are chained, so he has one in front and one arm behind his back, and he's like wrapped around with a chain. This giant is Ephialtes. He was one of the giants who waged war against the gods. Virgil says we're going to go find a different giant who's nearby, Antaeus. And the nice thing about that, Antaeus, not only can he talk to us, and he will be intelligent, but he'll actually help us down. Ephialtes gets mad at them talking about Antaeus. He gets so mad, here's how Dante describes Ephialtes going into a rage. He says, no earthquake in the fury of its shock ever seized a tower more violently than Ephialtes, hearing, began to rock. Then I dreaded death as never before, and I think I could have died for very fear had I not seen what manacles he wore. But they go over to Antaeus. Virgil asks Antaeus to help them down. He actually compliments him as well. He's like, he kind of like butters him up in the way like, I remember that wonderful thing you did, and oh, you're so awesome, and stuff like that. He kind of butters him up a little bit. And then he also says, like, hey, could you help us down? I mean, if you can, I could always go ask Titios or Typhon instead. I'm sure they'd help us down too. So after complimenting him, he also kind of like gives him the idea of like, those guys you don't like, we could just ask them to help us instead if you're not going to help us. And then just to finish it all off, it's kind of like a signature. He says, oh, and by the way, if you do help us down, Dante will put you in his book. Antaeus grabs him, he lifts him, and he puts them down on the ground into this pit where the giants are and down by the giants' feet. And that is the end of that canto.
Interesting.
Yeah.